Welcome to Plaster by Simpson. Today is episode 3 with Seth White.
Seth, glad you made it. Glad you're on. Probably going to be the most fun guest we've had today.
We've been looking forward to this.
We have been looking forward to this. Why don't we just do kind of an easy intro? You and I've known each other for 30 years. Worked at different companies for almost 15, 16 of them, and then you came over and joined us a couple years back. And so, why don't we just talk about your entry into construction, how you got here, how you got into it in general, and what the path looked like for you.
Well, first off, I've been here 15 years now, not a couple years back.
Whew.
But so I grew up in a construction family. My father built houses and just kind of that was my life. Lived in 20 something houses by the time I was a senior in high school. And just moved a lot and was around construction, so it's just what I knew. Went to Auburn and got a degree in building science, and then one thing led to another and wound up in the construction field. I initially went to work for a vendor selling construction products, and one day a guy in the waterproofing business was in there and said that his estimator quit, and I said, "Hey, I hear I'm your next estimator." And he called his salesman and said, "Who is this kid and what's he talking about?" And he interviewed me a day later, and I took a job and been doing waterproofing ever since.
Yep. And so when I met you, obviously we're at Broadco and I was at Simpson Commercial at the time, and we had not joined forces yet. And even then, you were probably 3 or 4 years into your career by the time we had met. And we're both on the ABC board, which was kind of fun for us to kind of have a little time to poke fun at GCs and do our thing, which is kind of funny. You are historically known for a lack of filter, which is probably one of the funnest parts about having you around. So, go ahead and tell us, once you got your career started, you kind of had tragic events, and then you kind of ended up really kind of running a company for a while, really young.
Yeah. Well, funny story, right when I took the job at the other place, my boss says, "Hey, I just got married and I'm going on a honeymoon." And he just leaves me there in charge of everything. And everybody from all the field people are coming in and asking me what to do. And I've literally worked there just a few months. And I don't know what to say. I don't know who to answer. I don't even, it's really awkward, but made it through it. And then he eventually wound up passing away due to an accident. And um, I don't remember exactly how old I was. I was fairly young, and I wound up just running that company. Ran it for another, I don't know, 8, 10 years before coming to Simpson.
Yeah, but and we're talking about obviously Mike Chandler, and you obviously liked Mike a lot, and he was a great mentor for you for those years, wasn't he?
Yeah, Mike was really good. He taught me most of what I know, and he worked. He grew up out in the Houston, Texas area, and was working on huge waterproofing projects. But it was originally from Gardendale, and came back to Alabama, and started his company here. And then I just mentored from him and learned a lot of waterproofing knowledge from him.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, I mean, that was always my secret was the same as yours, which is I had Mike Kennedy here, and I had George as well, but Mike was kind of more on my day to day, just teach it, get it right, learn it, go do it kind of thing. And those guys are vital. I mean, especially at that younger age for us, those guys are vital. Do you have any other big mentors in the industry at the time, or was it just him?
Pretty much Mike, and then just coming along back in the day, it was, you had the old school superintendents, and so there were superintendents that had been at the company for years and years and years, and those guys, especially when I got thrown in there the first week, those guys were the people I really leaned on. I'd be like,
Mhm.
"Hey, what am I supposed to do here? What?" And so so those superintendents imparted a lot of knowledge, and just going out, seeing things with them, or them explaining things and so forth.
What
Just the old school guys.
What do you think was the most important thing you learned over at Broadco that you've brought to Simpson?
Mm, that's a tough one. Probably just, how to handle problems. I mean, when I got thrown to the fire, it was all the problems were mine, and at first it was a lot of stress and what to do with it, and then over time I just kind of learned that's what construction is. It's the problem and then how to resolve that problem in the right way and the economical way for everyone, provide the end result you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From my standpoint, just as a point of reference, I knew you. We didn't know each other terribly well, but I knew you and I'd seen you. And so, from my standpoint of owning Simpson Plastering, because I just purchased it, um, I wasn't that interested in the waterproofing industry, but I was very interested in having you. And so, I wouldn't have started otherwise. But then when you became available, I was like, man, even though it's bad timing in terms of the economy, I was like, boy, you know, I want to be a part of your character and who you are. I had no idea at the time the amount of hours you work. I mean, very few people have the work ethic you have or the hour grind that you have. And that to me makes you unique in our industry, especially in today's workforce.
Yeah.
I can't remember how many years I came here for. I don't remember, like 2 or 3 years, maybe 5. I didn't even take a vacation.
Yeah.
I remember I was just trying to get it going and grinding, and that's one thing, I thank my dad for is that work ethic. My
Yeah.
dad was a hard worker. He's retired now, but he was a hard worker, and he never knew when to stop.
Yeah.
And I grew up that way, and you just worked.
Yeah. I remember I beat you to the office one morning, and I was all proud about it, and I told dad. He's like, "No, just wait till tomorrow." And you came walking to my office the next morning, you're like, "What time did you get here this morning?" I was like, "Oh, 6." You're like, "3:45."
Well, I will say this, your dad, which is funny. You mentioned your dad. I don't know your dad. I don't know that I've ever met your dad, but I feel like I know your dad because I've heard your stories about your dad. And then I get the sense that you're pretty dang a carbon copy of your dad. Despite the fact that none of us want to be, we all don't turn up like them. Tell me the best 2 lessons your dad taught you without necessarily saying, here's a lesson you got to learn.
The work ethic, definitely. I mean, at my house, it was you work. You come home from school, you had your chores you had to do. There were no excuses. There were no, you got your chores done. When I was a young kid, and I can remember my father like saying, tote shingles and put them on the roof by the time I get home. So I would ride a bus from my school, not to the house I lived at, but the house we're working on, and have a list of the things I needed to have done when he got there to go to work.
That's
That's
crazy.
impressive. That's impressive.
And so, I mean, whether it be cut something, tote shingles, clean up, whatever it was, even when I was little. I remember one of the first houses I really remember working on, my father actually dug the foundations with a toy-built rototiller of my grandfather's, and he would run it back and forth between the batter boards, and then me and my brother would fall on with shovels throwing the dirt out,
Nice.
and then he would run it and just keep on eating the dirt down to make the foundations.
Is that how you learn to save money on labor?
Yeah, that's what it was. So a hard work ethic is definitely something I learned from my father, is that you work hard in whatever you do. And the other thing is you do things right and take care of your stuff. So he was always big on your tools. You put your tools up, you put your equipment up, you take care of your equipment. You know where your equipment is. He didn't buy equipment over and over and over. My dad still has the same hammer he had when, I was a little kid. He has the same wrenches, the same, transit, the same everything he used to build, he has today. The same skill saw, old metal one that weighs 50 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
He still has it. And so you take care of your stuff.
Yeah.
I'm assuming your dad, that Craftsman lost money on your dad.
Yeah, my dad had a lot of Craftsman tools, still does, and still has them all. As a matter of fact, he worked at a company where he was in a position, he hired a lot of people, and one of the things he liked to do was he would say, "Hey, let me see your pocket knife." And they would hand him his pocket knife, and he really didn't care about their pocket knife. He said he liked knives and acted like he did, but he'd always ask him, "Well, how long you had this?" And he said that if they had had their knife, "Oh, man, I've had this forever." He was always like, "Oh, I'm gonna hire that guy because he'll take care of my stuff and my tools."
Huh.
But if they couldn't keep up with their own pocket knife, "Oh, I just got this one, I lost my other one." He would never hire that guy because he knew that that guy wasn't gonna keep up with his stuff in his place
No, that's
and
good.
take care
That's
of his tools.
Very, very key point. What about the changes in your crews from then till now? What's the major changes you've seen in your crews?
in our crews, it's tough because of the lack of skilled people that have been in the industry forever. Used to be old school and all these old guys, and they all, they had friends, buddies, and they would bring the guy. Oh, I got a kid that lives down the road, and they all came and they all worked and they all learned from those guys. And those older guys are dying off quickly, and there's not many of them left. And there's just not this train, if you will, of people just being trained to follow, just keep following the footsteps of the one before. And so that's the biggest thing I see is now we're relying on people that, you're trying to teach, but they don't have the skills like you used to always have so many skilled guys to teach them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest difference I see is finding those guys or even finding guys that want to go into the trade field because it's a hard living.
Yeah.
When it's hot, it's hot. When it's cold, it's cold. It's hard work.
No.
You have some superintendent yelling at you, and then you have your own office yelling at you to produce, and it's a tough road to hoe.
Yeah. It's a tough field. What are the changes in the general contractors?
I think it used to be a hard knock, get out in the field and go, and the superintendent had built 1,000,000 buildings and knew how to build them and could build them in his sleep. And today it's a more, and I hate to say educated because those guys were definitely educated into how to do something, but they knew how to do something. But now it's more like following the plan, the dotting the I and dotting the T and following a schedule versus let's get it built.
It's almost like it's more covering your own backside nowadays than it is building.
Definitely a lot of that, a lot of CYA, and I don't think that was so much. I mean, I'm sure they were covering themselves, but it was more about let's get in there and get it done. And today it's more about following some piece of paper, whether it's right or wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was the worst trailer job you ever been in? Who's the I ask Woody this question too. What's the worst trailer you've ever been stuck in?
I was in a trailer one time, and just to save face, I won't call names, but I was in a trailer and there was a consultant and we were going over the waterproofing on a project, and a young lady walked into the job trailer, and she had on a fairly short skirt, and as soon as she walks out, the consultant starts commenting on how hot the girl was. And about that time, the superintendent slung the chair across the room and said, "That's my daughter you're talking about." And it was super awkward, and everybody went dead silent. And the guy that said it just said, "Well, I wouldn't let my daughter dress like that."
Oh no!
And come on a job site. It was a pretty tense moment there for a
that was tense for different reasons than I was thinking it was going to be tense.
You guys obviously knew each other before started working together. Is there any one story that pokes out in your mind that's kind of a funny story in y'all's interactions in the past? Like on the ABC board or something?
We have some funny stories about traveling together down to Auburn and some stuff like that. But we didn't run into each other a bunch with work back then. I mean, we did with same jobs, but we were kind of different times on the job. So we knew all the same people and worked with the same people. Yeah. That to me is the biggest difference. When you and I were coming through, trailers were a rougher place to be, and you would take your lumps for sure. It was almost like taking lumps from your buddy, and then when it was over, you say, "Hey, come on, let's go grab a beer," or "Come on, let's go have lunch." You know what I'm saying? It seemed to be a lot more taking of your lumps, but at the same time, kind of a more forgiving friend to friend. And hey, if you're in real trouble, let's talk about this thing for how to get you out of trouble. Not where you're in real trouble. Oh well, that's your problem. We need a schedule to be met.
I don't think that the guys. It seemed like though I didn't mind taking my lump because those guys knew exactly what they're talking about most of the time, and most of the time it was deserved. And now I feel like there's less deserving because they just look at a piece of paper, an iPad, and say, "You're supposed to be here." No care for what's happened in the field. No,
Yeah.
And so then I don't feel like the lumps are always as warranted.
Yeah. Well, it's also because sometimes it's hard to even explain why you're not where you are. So, it's, well, you have a schedule in your contract says this, not, well, look at these 5 or 6 events happen. There's no way around them. Let's discuss that. It's no. Well, that's your problem because I got a contract here that says this is your number. And that to me is the hardest part. We kind of like you're dealing without reason sometimes. Whereas used to in the old trailer, there'd be some knockdown drag outs, but everyone had the event to get their argument on the table and at least be heard.
Yeah, it was nothing to see people just yell and scream and slap tables, and
Oh, yeah.
I've seen a lot of them do it. And, but
I had a trailer meeting years ago where Rodney Chambers tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're about to get your butt whipped." He said it in a lot worse language than that. He said, "You're about to get your butt whipped. You need to cool down." And I looked across the table, and the guy sitting across the table from me was about 6'5", and I thought, "Ooh, that was some sage advice. I better take quickly," because back then it wasn't that uncommon for guys to really get at it hard, back then. But I mean, but we got things done, and afterwards, the next day, the guy and I were fine with each other.
I think that's one big difference too. Like it definitely people would get mad at one another, but like you said earlier, that's just the way it was. And you'd mad, but you didn't come in tomorrow and say, "Man, that guy, I hate that guy," or
Right.
he's terrible. As a matter of fact, you call him tomorrow and y'all be like, "Hey man, what's going on?" And everybody was all happy.
Yeah.
It seems a little more emotional driven today.
And I don't mind
I
throwing.
think
Yeah, I'm with
I think
that.
it's Griffin's generation.
It is. We're more emotional people, I feel like.
The other side of this, you had guys, I mean, and I'll call a guy's name. I was kind of funny. Is I had Gene Hardy on one of my first condos, and I was green, and man, he ate me alive a couple of times. But I also, when I walked in that trailer, it's just me and Gene. He'd be more than happy to sit down with me and say, "All right, let me show you what I'm talking about here, what I'm seeing here." And he was just as willing to teach me as he was chew me out at that next meeting. It's just kind of a different environment as it went, and again, yeah, like you said, you took your lumps, but it's kind of like, okay, I took my lumps, but I also kind of learned something in this exchange. Then it was all good. And you take your lumps, there was no ill will. And now I feel like a lot of times if you really disagree, like guys take ill will back to the office.
The grudges.
Yeah, they take the ill will back to the
years.
office. And I'm like, man, we're just trying to get this thing built, and that to me is one of the harder things, you know.
Definitely is.
So
I
Now
bet.
it's got to be all PC face to face, and then write a bad email
Or hide behind an
or
email
hide behind the keyboard. Yeah.
yeah.
instead of just addressing it. But I'm not sure if that's hiding behind the keyboard or if that goes back to your thing of the covering your,
Yeah. Everything's
just
gotta be written
everything's got to be
documentation now.
documented, and so it's all, you're taught send the email, send the email. I mean, we do that here.
Sure.
We have a summary on a big job, and each week we send a summary. And, sometimes the contractor takes an offense to it, and it's not us saying, "Hey, here's the things you haven't done." It's more of like, "Hey, if you'll do these things, we can do our things," kind of keeping everything on track while we're covering ourselves in an email. But it's helpful too if they don't take offense. It's just information that's good information to move forward.
But yeah, information's not viewed as a good thing all the time anymore. Information's viewed as a battling tool.
An assault.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's hard. What's the biggest waterproofing job you ever done?
I just finished it. Medical
Zen.
Properties Trust.
Yeah. MPT for Horde.
That was a
Yeah,
huge
it's a
job.
big job.
It's
And
a really
actually,
cool job.
given how big that job was, how complex it was, it really went really well.
Yeah, it started off rocky, but I think it was all due to weather, just trying to combat weather and put waterproof roofing in, or hot, plaza decks in.
That's where you're unique. Job starts off rough, not going that well, and so you just say, "Well, come on, let's just go put it down. We'll just lay it down ourselves." Right? You're not afraid to go get a caulk gun and actually throw some caulk on the wall if you got to, or in that case, you and I laid down a part of that roof that day just because we had this idea of what was going on. Now we did. I didn't break a sweat. I want to be clear. You probably
I
did.
don't think.
I think we got out of there and really let the other guys take over. But I mean, you are really hands on with what you do.
I'm not gonna pick up a caulk gun because they're gonna throw me out unless it's something that's gonna be hidden.
Right.
But yeah, I don't mind doing something. I remember a job here early on when we first got going. We didn't have a whole lot of workers, and we have a guy named Alfredo Grande works with us, and he's been with me for like 30 years. And since I've been in the business, I guess he came a few years after, so not quite 30. And and he was out doing a waterproofing job and said, "Man, I don't, my help didn't show up and I'm dying." And so I went out there and Grande and I threw up all the waterproofing on that whole job on all the things. And when it was done, he said, "Man, I didn't really know you'd work." And I said, "Well, yeah, if you need me, I'll work."
Yeah. I'm always surprised how few people think I can actually work when they come through. People always shocked when I work.
I think the quote from our truck driver is, "Richard, he ain't much."
Yes, I think that was referring more to my power and strength than
Right,
it
right,
was
right.
anything else. But yes, I'm not much when it comes to lifting bags of cement anymore, for sure.
I will say waterproofing is a tough line of business. I remember I worked here most summers and I was always on the wet wall side and I would mix stucco and push the wheelbarrow. And one job or one summer I got here and they were like, "Well, you're gonna go do a waterproofing job for Seth." And I remember peeling waterproofing off my skin for the next week after doing that one day worth of work, caulking and air barrier and stuff like that. The guys that are up under you are skilled because I don't know how they don't get it all over them. They'll do it in collared shirts.
Yeah. We have some of them there that do it, and I'm like, "Man, you haven't been working." He said, "I'm just good at what I do."
That's very true. That's very true. All right, so tell me about your first 2 or 3 years here. I know it was a slow start, rocky start, all that. Tell me your thoughts of your first couple of years.
It was slow. It was stressful because I was worried that I needed to produce to make myself worthwhile. So,
Yeah.
hence the reason I worked a whole lot and just trying to make a thing go. And the economy was slow. Um, it it uh, but it developed into a good thing, and we I think it works well together. That it was always nice to know you had another side of the company, where at the previous company all we did was waterproofing, and so there was no. I guess we have built-in work here to some degree, things that we could do to help the company that we would have done previously and charged you for. Now we're part of you, and that helped grow things and launch things into a bigger company, just being able to, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but to,
And cooperate together.
yeah, yeah.
And there you go. Yeah. I mean, if your first 3 or 4 years, obviously the wet wall side carried you, but really the last couple of years you've grown so fast. I mean, you're equal to what we do on the wet wall side. I mean, it's bona fide growth. I mean, your growth has been growing probably at, I would say, 20% clip a year, roughly. I've probably been going on for 5 or 6 years. I mean, it's been incredible, the growth you have seen as it goes.
Here's that medical properties trust.
There's not a square wall in that building,
Yeah.
and all those little plazas out there, we put the waterproofing on, except that very tip-top roof up there's a roof.
Yeah, that's a crazy looking building.
Back to when I first came here, I do remember one thing. I didn't have a vehicle because of I'd just come and you were getting me a vehicle. You'd ordered me one, and so your wife had a sister company, and it did some cleanup, and they put me in this truck, and it was bright red like a fire truck, and it said "Death to Meth" on it because they did meth cleanups.
I did
meth
not
lab
even
cleanups.
remember you
And-
driving that truck.
Yeah, I drove a red truck. It said "Death to Meth," and I came home, and my wife said, "Where did you go to work? What is this?" And then she says, "It's safe to be in this truck." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." But I learned really quickly that they did a lot of work up in Winston County and Walker County, and that's where my lake house was. I learned really quickly that the sheriff's department didn't blink at that death to meth truck going really fast down the road.
So just for reference, my wife's company cleaned up meth labs all over the state of Alabama. So we didn't just have normal trucks. It said "Death to Meth." That was the meth cleanup truck. I would pay money for a picture of you in that truck. We've got to find it.
I'm sure there is one.
That is quality work right there.
Yeah. On the dash was the sheriff of Winston County and Walker County's business cards taped
up
on there.
there.
So I felt pretty confident.
Yeah.
I think one of the people from One Stop said, "Oh, they're not going to bother you." And I was like, "Okay."
If I had the little lights you could throw up
It
there.
had a yellow-
It had
a
the
yellow-
yellow
Those were
lights
the
you could
best.
throw up there and
Those were the
go.
best.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny.
This is actually interesting. You know how there's misconceptions in all different trades. What do you think is the biggest misconception in the waterproofing trade? And the example that I drew was, in the EIFS system, all these architects think that there's a drainage plane behind it that can just drain free-flowing water when it's really for incidental moisture. What do you think is the biggest misconception in the waterproofing world?
Mm. I'd say self-healing. Everybody says, "Oh, is that a self-healing membrane? Is that a self-healing air barrier? Is that a self-healing, whatever?" And they always want everything to heal itself. And I'm always saying, there's no such thing as a self-healing.
Mm.
There's membranes that pass a nail sealability test, and it's a ASTM test they run to see if the screw or the nail, the penetration will seal up in the membrane. But there's no magic membrane that grows on the wall after you put it in to fill a hole. There is one below grade now to say that. A bentonite waterproofing does that. It swells, it's a clay, and it gets wet, swells. But typically they're referring to air barriers or vapor barriers, and they're like, "Oh, is this self-healing?" No, it's not. I say it over and over in pre-startup meetings. It's not self-healing.
We have a joint product on Elastomeric, which is the same way, where they're like, "Oh, paint that with Elastomeric, it'll be okay." But, it has 200% elongation. You're like, well, 200% elongation of 6 mils. You're covering a 32nd of an inch. Like, it doesn't really do a whole bunch, even though it sounds great to have 200%, but 200% of nothing is still nothing.
Nothing.
That's a hard one on that side to go with as well. Let's see. Go ahead, Griffin. Why don't you throw the 3 questions we give everybody out?
All right, yeah. 3 questions we got here. First one is,
I should study.
what's the last book that you completed?
That actually is pretty easy. The Bible.
Listen,
That's the last book I've read every word of.
Wow.
I mean, we have some here that are assigned by the boss to read, but I usually cheat a little bit and get it on tape and listen to it. So what was that one? 21
Laws of Leadership. Oh no, 10X.
Yeah, 10X. That book I listened to on tape,
Yeah.
but to actually read, is the Bible.
Which, by the way, Seth is typically grandfathered out of most of our programs. It's his option to come and go as he pleases.
I thought about talking about AI, and maybe not. maybe not.
Not
Who's AI?
I'm not technology.
All right. Question 2 we always do is, if you had to give a TED Talk on anything today, what would it be?
Well, I'd have to ask you what exactly a TED Talk is.
The TED Talk's where the guys get up on stage and they present something that they're passionate about, that they know a lot about. And it can't be waterproofing. Because we know you know a lot about waterproofing.
I don't know right off the top of my head.
Cars.
Boats.
Yeah. I'd talk about cars or wooden boats.
The wooden boats is impressive.
Another thing from my dad.
Yeah.
A lot of labor
Oh.
for a long time to get a result.
All right, tell me how long and how many coats of clear coat goes on a wooden boat. You told me this years ago, and weren't you like backing screws out and keeping them, or tell me that process, because it made me want to pull my hair out.
So yeah, the last wooden boat me and my father put together, he would know exactly the count, but it was in the teens, 15 to 18 layers of polyurethane, and every time in between that you're sanding. And you don't sand with electric sanders on a wood boat. It'll make flat spots. You use what's called a longboard. And so it's all hand work.
Oh.
And so we would sand it on and sand it down and then put more on, sand it down and put more on. And I would ask him sometimes, I say, "Dad, I don't even understand this, because we put it on, then we sand it back off."
Yeah.
And, but you're just trying to fill all those low spots ultimately. But
and didn't you have to pull brass screws out?
I pulled every screw out of the boat and put them all back in new.
Oof. New brass screws are the same ones you clean them up?
No, new, because they're so soft, you boogering them up, getting them out. There's so much wood filler and stuff in them. It's a fight. You sit there with a little pick and awl to clean them out.
Yeah.
It's.
Do y'all still have that boat?
I do.
That's awesome.
You should have put a picture on that on the board.
I know.
Yeah, that'd have been. We were actually talking about that on the way back today from looking at a job, which is our generation enjoys those boats. Our father's generation, that was like a sign of wealth, was to have a boat like that running on the lake.
Huh.
If you had an old wooden boat, they were built to be disposable.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Back then they didn't think, 5, 7 years, and you just go buy a new boat.
Yeah.
And then people started repairing them and redoing. Most of the time, they're better today than they were originally. The materials you use, the varnishes you use, and such, the coatings.
Huh. All right. Third question is, who's your favorite GC if you have one?
The one that gave me the most profitable job, the most recently.
All right.
Consistent answer amongst our group.
with our guys.
Well, I don't want to. I wouldn't disparage any of them. Not at least on
I do
on
love
camera.
You've got good and bad nicknames for all of
Yeah, I do.
them. And it always cracks
Yeah.
me up.
Yeah.
I know what kind of mood you're in when you walk in my office and say whatever nickname you got for them. I'm like, yep, there we go. Job's going well.
Most of them know them because I say it to most of them. I too.
Yeah, back to the no filter part.
Back to the
Yeah, that's a good and bad thing.
Seth and I did go on a trip with a guy from a GC once. I knew we'd had a rough week or two beforehand. I was like, Seth, just drop it. Don't say anything about it, no matter what. And I show up to the airport to go on the trip, and literally he has already discussed it with a guy before I could even get to the airport.
I think I was in high school on that.
Yeah, you actually were. I
went,
forgot about that.
I went because I was in charge of hiking with all the kids.
I had him cornered over there.
Yeah.
But I told him, hey, when we get on the airplane, it's over. We're on a trip once we get on the airplane.
Got to get this off my chest, but it's coming to you now.
Yeah.
Buckle down. It's coming to you right now.
Yeah.
He's just hoping for the gate agent to start calling.
Yeah.
Your dad was.
Yeah.
Before I said something.
Man, that's all.
All right, I got one other thing. Tell me what you think the next 3 years look like, for the waterproofing division and the economy, and what you think you'll see over the next 3 years. Are there any dramatic changes, any dramatic growth? What do you think you're going to see?
I'm a little worried about the economy right now. It seems a little slower, and we have had good growth over the last so many years, and I don't necessarily see that this year. But I hope to at least hold our own and get there. I do see potential for us as a company because we kind of centrally locate the waterproofing here where we have a lot of regions for the stucco. And so if we can figure out how to get that branched out to those regions, that's where we can see large growth is by doing the same thing we do here in other areas. So far, we struggle with that a little bit, just trying to figure out the ins and outs of that. But if we can figure that out, I think that's the best avenue for big growth.
Mm-hmm.
We do our fair share here. We're never going to do it all. And so we do our fair share. And so to find more, we just need other places to find it.
Yeah.
So you have the opportunity for geographic growth. Really, the wet wall side doesn't have that much of, but you're on every building. So it makes it easier to find that revenue too.
I think that's the biggest opportunity we have out there.
Yeah. What about your young guys? We've had a couple of young guys come in.
Yeah, that's helpful. We've got a couple new guys that work that are starting to learn how to do the estimating and pick it up and are starting to, learn people and introduce themselves and become a part. And that just, again, more integration has to be done to get them to, know more people out of this area. Because, again, we know most of the people in this area.
Mm-hmm.
We need to know people in other areas and grow our business that way. But we have a couple smart guys, James Morgan and Harrison McDonald, that are younger, upcoming guys that can take the reins.
It's the one thing that's hard to me about our industry in general and about, trying to grow a company, which is you have young guys, you hire them in, you want to teach them, but you've also got to have the revenue growth to keep paying for young guys and the growth of the company. And so that to me is the hard part is you can't keep growing because you've got to have the revenue backfill. And when you have these dips or you have these flat times, I don't think necessarily we're dipping. I just think it's a flatter economy across the board. And we've been lucky to see some growth, but it does make you pause about hiring people and what do you need to do and how do you keep your good guys? That to me is always one of those nervous things.
I find it hard to hire a new guy and you're trying to invest in him, but the same thing, you got to keep your volume to pay the bills.
Right.
And so you got these bids that are due and there's no backing that date up and you're trying to get that done. In the meantime, you're worried about what that young guy's doing and you're trying to help him. And you really need some self-starters, and I think we got a couple that can do that. I mean, they really picked up on their own a lot of it just because
They want to. They
they
have to
had
learn.
to. They had
Yeah.
to they had to learn by fire and then just run and ask me questions
Yeah.
because it's a hard balance there.
When you are hiring someone, what are kind of the characteristics you look for in that person?
Mm. I you're gonna laugh. I always like the B guy. I don't want the A guy. He's too smart to have common sense. And I don't want the D guy that's a dummy. I want the BC guy that is, he's got common sense, but he's smart enough to pick up things and learn how to
Yeah.
do something.
I can tell you from watching you the kind of guy you got to hire. You got to hire a guy that has work ethic that can match yours and common sense.
Common sense.
The one thing you can't deal without is when people come in and they don't have common sense. You can't comprehend it, and therefore you can't even reason with it. You're just like, I can't. It's the one thing that I've seen in you that you just can't function with. Is someone who says like, "Well, how do I do something very simple?" You're like, it's right there. How do you not know how to do it?
I think that's why I think it's the B guy. He's the common sense guy. I may be wrong.
Savvy thinker.
I get it from my dad. My dad's one of the smartest people I've ever known. But my dad, he went to a 2-year college and got a degree in criminology, and he started out as a police officer. But he's one of the smartest people I know because he's got a lot of common sense, and he just learned on his own. And I guess I'm kind of driven toward that.
Yeah, you appreciate savvy a lot more than you do intellect.
Yeah.
And I think our industry does. I mean, I tell people all the time, they talk about, hey, Mr. Riley, should I get in your industry? And I'm always like, it's the greatest industry in the world because it's one of the only industries where you can still just outgrind the guy.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the smartest. You can just outgrind the guy next to you, which is kind of one of the cool things I think we see. But I do like your young guys because they have that grit and that grind, and even in our wet wall side, some of our young guys over there, I love the kind of the tenacious competitiveness about the new guys and kind of where they're going.
And Seth will be the first to say that's hard to find these days. Young guys with grind.
Oh,
yeah.
it's real hard to find somebody that wants to work.
Yeah. It's hard, but they're there.
It's hard. Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah,
It's
it
really just a matter of can you find them and then can you get them to kind of come into the culture and kind of be who we need them to be as well.
And stay long enough to reap the reward. They want the reward immediately. I think that's hard to find. They want an immediate reward, but if they'll learn and then grow, then the reward's there.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the hard parts. Especially in a company like ours, merit-based. I mean, you really don't get your reward till you start producing work. So you might work a year or 2 or even 3 before you have a real contract that makes real money where you get a real bonus, and that's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, but it's really, and it's the way I have it set up, obviously, but it's the best way to grow the company because you have less risk and more time to train someone unless they leave. And, that's the hard part. Kind of, it's a double-edged sword. How do you do all that? That's why I think someone buying into the overall culture is such a big deal, as a Gary. That's it. You got any other questions left?
No, thanks for coming on.
Did we miss anything, Seth, that we need to follow up on?
We can come back. I'm sure I have some thoughts somewhere. I wasn't exactly prepared.
Well, I'm sure we got. Yeah, obviously you're here with us, so we'll have many more times to do it. Glad you made it. Thanks for coming.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching episode 3 with Seth White. Please like, comment, subscribe. Everything you do helps this channel grow and helps us keep doing it. Thanks.